Good morning, baseball fans, and welcome back to Dan's Vintage Baseball PC. Do not be fooled by that fancy name. It's just me and friends talking about baseball cards, and I see my TV is on behind me. So today's episode is a two-parter. The reason it is a two-parter is because this amazing collector that we have on the show today has such a great, amazing collection that we couldn't do it all in one show. There's so many slides that I had to split them up into two different groups of slides. So the player we are profiling today is Phil Rizzuto, who of course was a lifetime New York Yankee. Is special to me because I know him as the guy whose voice was on every time I turned on a Yankee game from my youth until practically my middle age. So let's talk about Mr. Rizzuto here. He was born in Brooklyn. He went to Richmond Hill High School in Queens, where he excelled at baseball. Even though he had such a small stature, he was a star and tried out for local teams. Famously, the New York Giants told him he was too small and he should go become a shoe shiner. But the Yankees saw something in him, and they were smart. He went down to the minor leagues in Virginia, eventually went to Kansas City, which was essentially the AAA team for the Yankees at that time. I think he won the MVP and then was brought to the Yankees in 1941, where he took over at shortstop for the player Frank Crosetti, who had been a legend with the Yankees, but whose time had come to move along. Rizzuto always felt that there was a little bit of animosity when he started because of Crosetti being such a favorite of the fans and his teammates, but soon Phil would become that. So in 1941 and 1942, he had two excellent seasons. And then World War II came, and Phil Rizzuto spent 3 years, I believe it's in the Navy, but he ended up being, I'm going to turn this off because it's bothering me. He ended up being sent to the Pacific and then was basically playing ball and was a soldier in the Pacific. He came back in 1946 as the starting shortstop for the Yankees. Didn't do so great, but after that, he went through a stretch where he was one of the best shortstops in the major leagues. Let's see what his numbers are. So, as you can see, the 2 years and then the 3 years in the military service, he comes back. And then in 49, he has such a solid year that he finishes second in MVP voting to Ted Williams. And in 1950, he has a remarkable season where he leads the league in at-bats at 735 at-bats, 125 runs scored. He bats .324 and he wins the MVP. Phil Rizzuto is a six-time All-Star. More importantly, I believe he won, let's go back, World Series, 7 World Series victories where he was a crucial member of the team on those World Series victories. Later on in his career, he slowed down a little. 55 and 56, he didn't play much. He was released by the Yankees in August of 1956 and talked about it for years, how it hurt him. But he was very smart because he didn't say anything negative about the club, and ultimately they hired him to become an announcer, where he would announce for the Yankees for 40 years and become indelible in the minds of all Yankee fans from the mid-1950s until his retirement, and I believe it was after the 1996 season, where he got to announce perhaps the greatest shortstop in Yankee history, Derek Jeter, but Phil Rizzuto is certainly up there. So my guest is a Phil Rizzuto collector, and she is the first female guest on this show. And as many of you in the hobby know, the female people in the hobby are underrepresented. But I know the demographics of my channel will get this reference. Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers used to be a dance partners in the 40s and 50s, very famous movies. But Astaire got more of the accolades. And they said Ginger Rogers actually should have received more of the accolades because she did the same moves as Fred Astaire, but did them all backwards and in high heels. So it's kind of a metaphor for how difficult it is for women to break into traditionally male areas of interest. And in the hobby, it is sadly something. But my guest, Andrea, has in fact done the Phil Rizzuto collection in high heels and backwards, and has such a collection that it's amazing to us that we had to do it in 2 episodes. So this is the first one. This will be mostly cards and a little bit of memorabilia. Part 2, which will air next week, is going to be mostly memorabilia. And some of this stuff is literally going to take your breath away and knock your socks off. And I'm really happy to welcome Andrea onto the show. Good morning. How are you?
Good morning. I'm good. How are you? Thanks.
I hope you're not offended by the Fred Astaire, Ginger Rogers reference, because I feel like when I saw this collection, I said, this person has put in probably 10 times the effort that some of other collectors do and get accolades. And for you, I give you kudos, because this collection is unique, remarkable, etc. So thank you for coming on.
Thank you.
So Phil Rizzuto, special to me, and I'm very happy that we're able to do this show. How does he become the person who you are collecting so, so voluminously, so to speak? How does he become that person?
Similar to you, when I was growing up, Phil Rizzuto was the voice of the Yankees. Every game, every radio, free. You could watch literally every game on PIX. And I would, doing homework on the back porch of my parents' house in Union. So literally, you grew up hearing Phil, hearing his stories. He lived in the next town over in Hillside, around the corner from my best friend in high school. And you just fell in love with his stories and how he approached things, how down to earth he was, how approachable he was. And that's what kicked off the interest.
Wonderful. He, as you know, of course, PIX, Channel 11 was the Yankees, and the Mets were on Channel 9. And so he was also funny. He was a funny guy, sometimes unintentionally. But many times I think he was in on the joke. And we'll get through that as we go through. But you met him, obviously, multiple times. So
many times. Yeah.
How was he? Was he in person? Was he the same kind of personality that he was on the air?
Absolutely. I'm very approachable and would engage you in conversation. The stories of people bringing him cannolis at the games were true. I would bring cannolis. But I also worked at Rodale Press, which is up here in Pennsylvania in Emmaus. And Cora was always after the scooter to watch his cholesterol. And his daughter Penny was a big gardener. So I would bring books from Rodale as well, low-fat cooking books, gardening books for his daughter. So I would be bringing things to him. He would laugh, enjoy it. He would sign anything you brought to the stadium. One time I brought one of the baseball gloves. He actually put it on his hand in that little office hallway and was pounding it and was saying to Tony, the security guard, "Tony, can you believe I would catch a ball with this?" And he kept pounding the glove. But it didn't matter where you saw him. If you ran into him at the Italian deli, at the bakery in Hillside, Kenilworth, he would talk to anyone. He would sign autographs. He was just so down to earth. It's amazing.
I didn't mention a couple of things. One was that he was elected to the Hall of Fame as a Veterans Committee in 1994, I believe. Did you attend the Hall of Fame?
Yeah. Yes, I did.
Yeah. And his speech is legendary because of the same things. It was one of those things where you felt like if Phil Rizzuto is going to get elected and give a speech, this is exactly what it should be. It should be sweet, nice, funny, a little bit like, he was humble in many respects, because he even said, "I don't have the numbers to get into the Hall of Fame," but I think he was wrong. I think he did. And I was a supporter of his Hall of Fame candidacy for, since I was a kid.
Ted Williams was actually quoted as saying, had the Red Sox had Phil at shortstop, they may have won a few more series back in the day.
And the other thing that never gets discussed when they talk about his numbers is his fielding numbers are insane. Even when you talk about, advanced stats, which of course didn't exist back in the 40s and 50s, but his fielding advanced stats are crazy numbers. I mean, he's 19th all time of shortstops, but he only played like what 14 seasons, and like 4 of them he didn't really play that much. So we're talking about a 10-year period where he's an elite shortstop. So definitely something that needs to be known is that he was really not just known in the era as a great shortstop, but you know, numbers wise. So let's we start generally with cards. So we're going to do cards here, and we start with my collection, which, you know, it's decent, but nothing like yours. So on the left is the 48 Bowman, which is considered his rookie, even though he came into the league in 1941. But there weren't cards during the war, and there's some you know, some stuff you'll show later on that came out, you know, oddball stuff. I got that at the National in Atlantic City, raw, at a really nice price. The 3.5 came back, and that gave me a great value above what I spent on it. Above that is, of course, the 1953 Bowman card of Phil and Billy Martin, who, of course, was one of his lifetime friends. Next to that is the 53 Bowman Phil, of course, in the classic bunting pose. The 54 Bowman, I think he's card number 1 in the set, which is great. Below that is a Wheaties. I'm not sure if that's 52 or 53, and then the 56 Topps, which we'll see yours pretty soon. But this is the special item that I showed you before we went on air. In 1942, my grandfather went to spring training sites, at least 3 of them down in Florida, and took photos that came down to me as an heirloom. This is Phil Rizzuto outside of the stadium in the parking lot, spring training 1942. You can see how young he is. There's like a white patch of what looks like sort of a photo era below, like to the right of him, which is a shame, but you can see the classic 30s, 40s cars, and of course Phil in his Yankee uniform. So this is your card. So as I said before, 48 was his quote unquote rookie because it's a flagship, but this is the 1941 double play with Lefty Gomez. How long have you had it? Where'd you get it?
Oh gosh, most of the cards are probably I got in the 90s. Did a lot of card shows before I was married, and then a little bit after I was married, and then once the kids came along, there was a big stretch of no card shows. But probably all in the 90s, all in the New York, New Jersey metro area. Couldn't tell you exactly which one, but like the Long Island Classic.
Yep.
And back in the day, you'd go to card shows in high schools. Like I remember going to many in Roselle Catholic High School, and Clark, and the Meadowlands would have shows. So mostly those.
Well, I grew up on Long Island, so the shows that I went to in that time period were hotels. There was one in Plainview, and the biggest show I remember was at Nassau Coliseum, actually.
Yes, Nassau.
Yeah, not in the where they played the game, but like a sort of a separate side area where you went in, and it was like a little convention type
Little
room.
convention center. Then there was also a lot of shows here in Willow Grove, the Eastern PA shows, and you could really get some good prices when you're outside that New York area.
Yeah.
So I would do those shows quite a few times.
So you mentioned your wedding, and I know there's a video of it.
There's a clip on YouTube of Phil announcing the starting lineup of the day's All-Star event. I had invited him and Cora to the wedding, waiting to see if they would come. And about a week after the RSVPs were due, I got a letter in the mail from Cora, and they were coming. They responded, yes, that they would come. I got married in the church here in Allentown, and I was already up at the altar, and the whispering started, and then the bridesmaids whispered, and they said, he's here. And I said, who's here? Thinking, oh, my husband's at the back of the church. And they said, no, Phil had waited till I walked up the aisle, and he and Cora were sitting at the back of the church because they didn't want to distract from me walking in. And then they joined us at the wedding reception. I sat them at a table because you don't want to play favorites with family. So I sat them at a table with friends. One was a big collector. Another, he was a baseball card dealer. his wife grew up in Hillside, so she and Cora talked quite a bit. And then he announced the wedding party, and it was all baseball themed, which I had written and sent to him ahead of time. And it was really the highlight of the day. He just made everyone feel warm and welcome. And towards the end of the reception, my cousin Maria whipped out a dozen baseballs, ran into the box, gave them to all the kids, because I had all my little cousins there, and they all went up to him, and he signed every baseball. So that kind of tells you the kind of guy he was.
That, I mean, when I heard that, yeah, I should mention that you and I are introduced online through our mutual friend Stacy.
Yes.
Who our viewers will remember from the Roy Campanella and the Yogi Berra show.
The Yogi.
And he said this to me, and I saw the link to the video. I'm not. Is it a public link? Can I link?
Yeah,
below?
it's on YouTube. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
I think it's titled the Rizzuto Freeman Wedding.
Okay.
As though I married Phil Rizzuto, but I didn't. But that's what it was called.
Well, I will link below, because it was, to me, it was like, I don't know. I mean, it's crazy. My wife is friends with Mark Lawrence and his wife, who did a lot. He wrote and directed a lot of movies like Miss Congeniality, and he wrote for Family Ties. So my wife went to that wedding before she even knew me. And Michael J. Fox was at the wedding. So that's the only famous person at a wedding story that I have. And it wasn't even me. But this was literally your wedding, Phil Rizzuto showing up. It takes my breath away just to think about it. But it
was fun. I had a friend sitting with him. His name is Pete Chiarelli, and he's a member of SABR. So he came prepared. He had a list of questions he asked Phil, and he'd be like writing answers down. And so it was nice. I think he enjoyed his day because he was at a table with baseball enthusiasts, which was nice.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing about Phil, is that he himself was a baseball enthusiast. If you knew from listening to, tens of thousands of hours of games, he was the guy that, he had stories that were, the kind of stories you would have if you were into baseball. So I don't know what these are. I'm thinking Tip Top bread, Bond bread.
I'm thinking Tip Top. One was cut square, and one I bought rounded, and I just put them together.
Okay. I have cards from this set, but not Phil. So this is nice to see. Great picture of him. These came out in, I believe, 47.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that sounds about right.
And this is the 49 Bowman, name on front and no name on front.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing. Got them at a show in the 80s.
In the area, yeah. It's been so long since I bought them. I don't actually remember exactly which show, but I bought very few cards through eBay. They were mostly all bought in person.
So
that is my only graded card. I'm one of those people. My son is into getting his cards graded. I'm not, because I collect out of the love of collecting, and to me, that's the value, to say that I own it. So that's the only graded card in my collection.
It's interesting because it's an old grading company that I believe doesn't even exist anymore.
SBC.
Yeah, and that's the 52 Bowman next to him. That is a card I need because I'm building that set, and I do not have Phil's card.
Ah,
yeah.
Sorry, it's not for sale.
Well, I was going to say, I had to tell you about that photo, my grandfather's photo. I can't send it to you because it's I promised my mother, and rest her soul, I will never break promises to my mother, who was the same. Okay, so these two, you sent these to me pretty much first.
Yeah.
And the one on the left, tell me about the one on the left.
That's the 52 Coke tips. I've only ever seen two. The first one was in really bad condition. So even though I was intrigued, I didn't buy it. And then a couple of months later, I did see the second one, and I loved it. I love that Phil was on it. I love the color red. I love the odd shape. I had just gotten married, and I kind of said to my husband, I'd really like to have this. And he said, okay. And I bought it. And that, I believe, I got down in Willow Grove at the Eastern shows. And it came in that case, and it's been in there. I've never taken it out. I won't get it graded because I'm afraid to mail it away. And like I said, the grading's not important to me, just to have the piece.
So,
and then
go ahead.
The matchbook and the drink stirrer, I believe I got in one of the New York shows. It was just, when you go buying those glass cases are on a table, they were in there, and I was like, "Ooh, this is interesting."
So the 52 Coke tips, I did look at when you sent it to me. I thought I knew what it was, but I wasn't quite sure. So I looked it up. I did a little research, and PSA has graded a grand total of 2 of these.
Wow.
So this is ultra rare, and an item that you're intelligently collecting and putting in, a safe place, and so don't do anything with it.
It's actually just across the room in the cabinet.
Yeah, it's
on display.
It's if you're going to be a super collector, which you are, I hate to tell you, but you're a super collector. It's what you're going to be called. That's the kind of item that is the pinnacle of a collection of this nature. Now on the right, it's Phil Rizzuto bowling. Do you know anything about that?
Phil and Yogi owned a bowling alley in New Jersey together for many years. My son actually got me a sweatshirt with the Rizzuto Berra logo on it, but I've never been there. I think it was open for over 20 years. And I didn't even realize they did that or owned it together until I saw the matchbook and drink stirrer together. And I don't think I paid more than $10 for both of them.
Yeah, that's
so I've never seen it again. Both items in this photo, I've not seen them since anywhere.
Okay, so this is I've seen my Stan Musial collector friend has this from Musial. I think this is 1950.
Royal Desserts.
Yeah, and it's one of those things like it was on the packaging or something.
Correct. So none of them will be cut nice because they're hand cut. And I looked for it. I like the oddball things. You can go to every card show and get a 53 Topps or a 54 Bowman.
Right.
They're everywhere. Every dealer has them for sale. But when you find the oddballs, like the Royal Desserts, the matchbook cover, the Coke tips, to me, those are like, what would you call it? Like what you're striving for, to find those odd things.
Yep. I'm in that boat too. I totally agree with you. You can see 50s and 60s cards until you're blue in the face, but something like this you don't see very often. Like I said, I am involved with cards these days every day, and I've never seen this item with Phil on it. And you said hand cut, but this is cut actually really nicely.
It is. But I think, like you said, it came on like the back of Royal Desserts was like a Jello, like a converted Jello today. So somebody had it on the back of the box and literally had to cut it to keep it as a card.
Yep. All right. So I think one of these is Burke Ross, but I'm not sure what the other one is.
I think they're both Burke Ross. One is bunting, one is swinging. There were 2 versions. And the one on the right, the swinging one, I just got in February of this year. My son and I went to an autograph show for Yankees, and I had found it there just on a whim. I walked by and said, I don't have that one.
So Burke Ross did 2 sets, 51 and 52. The 51 cards are shorter. The longer cards.
I have that one. I don't think I sent it to you. I have the shorter one too.
Right. But so in 52 they became longer, and these are look like 52, but I don't know. Does Phil have 2 cards in the set?
I think swinging and bunting.
Okay, because I'm not familiar with the 52, because I know I'm never going to build it, because there's a Mantle and a Jackie Robinson and a Willie Mays in that set. So
that you'll never find.
Yeah. Well, I'll never find enough money to pay for them, is what it really is. So I know what these are, because I actually just got my first of these StarCal decals in the Strongsville show like a month ago. And so you've had these probably for how long?
Oh, since the 90s, easily.
Yeah. And there's the solo and then the duo. Who's the other player in that?
Oh, let me look and see if I can see it on your screen.
I'm sticking my
Uh,
the camera.
Coleman.
Oh, Jerry Coleman,
Yes.
his shortstop, second base partner for a while.
Yep.
Awesome.
And it
And the
was nice to
glove.
find because I thought they were in really good shape. You
Yeah,
know, they're in the envelopes, which is nice.
they're items that are rare but not expensive. When I was in
Correct.
England, I got the Al Rosen, which cost me, I don't know, $40 or something for a 1952 item that's hard to find. $40 is a steal.
Yes, it
But
is.
what I love about the Phil, well, it's the same photo in both of them, but the bigger one, he's got that glove,
It looks
which
ginormous.
we'll, we'll see a glove a little later on, but not to spoil. But I'm gonna let you talk about the glove later
Okay.
on. So these are Wheaties. Are these 52?
I believe they're both 52s. And I
Also,
like Wheaties because he did all those little comic book ads. So you had the Wheaties cards and then you had the Wheaties ads.
yeah, the ads are going to be in part two. I'm sorry, I maybe
That's okay.
thematically could have put them together, but there's so much stuff. I did the best I could. So these are hand cut, and these are cut nicely also.
Yes, they're very nice.
And
And
then,
really, Wheaties are kind of nice because, like you said, they're from 52, but they're not expensive cards.
yeah.
So,
Well, my example, which is the same as the portrait, was a gift
oh, wow.
on Twitter. Yeah,
I've met a couple nice friends on Twitter, you know,
yeah,
Stacy and Cigar Box Cards,
yes.
Cards with the Story. You can make some good connections in collecting through social media. It's been kind of nice.
Oh, absolutely. Yes. And that's, of course, how we would ultimately be connected. So these two are both, as you said before, oddballs, hard to find. The tip top on the left is frustrating for me because I've tried to buy multiple
Oh,
examples of,
really?
not Phil in particular, but other players. Johnny Mize, who I collect, has one of these, and I've never been able to buy it because either A, they're in terrible shape, or B, they're ridiculously overpriced. But
Wow.
you got this Phil, and it's beautiful.
Oh, it's gorgeous. That's New York, New Jersey show from college days, maybe, or right after college. A long
Nice.
time. And to me, the harder one was the New York Journal,
Yep.
54. That's really hard to find.
Yeah, the New York Journal, I guess they did, it's 54, right?
Hmm.
They did Yankees and Giants, I think,
They
and
were lead promotions for the newspaper.
yeah. I have a friend who has, I guess, the Mays, and another friend who has Monty Irvin, but I've never seen Phil before at a show either.
You don't see them very often. You really don't. So when you see them, you get them.
Yeah, exactly. But I'm on the lookout for one of those because it's a set that I don't. Neither one of these sets do I have represented in my collection. Which,
Oh,
you know,
wow.
yeah, you got them both, and you got Phil. So, okay, so these we saw before. Um, do you know like details or any stories about the relationship between Phil and Billy Martin, who would become his second base partner later on in the 50s?
That I don't know. You know, I don't remember him talking much about Billy Martin. I think their lifestyles were very different. You know,
Yeah,
Phil was very down to earth. I don't think he was quite the partier that Billy Martin was. So I don't think they may have socialized as much in their personal lives. So I honestly can't even say I've ever had a conversation or overheard one.
yeah. The Yankees did have two groups of people in that time frame. There were the partiers, which were Ford, Martin, Mantle, and as you can see right here, this is a photograph taken in a. Let me pull out a little bit here. This we'll do it this way. There we go. This here, that's Mantle, Ford, Scourin, Joe Collins, Charlie Silvera, Eddie Lopat out at a restaurant in Baltimore in 1954 or 5, and that was like the party group. And it's funny because I always thought Why isn't Martin in this? Martin must have had a too hungover. But the thing about Billy and Phil is that Phil would never say a bad word about Billy, despite the fact that Billy, even in the '80s, while Phil was announcing, Billy was doing all sorts of crazy stuff. But the second group of people in the Yankees were like Yogi and Phil. They were married. They went home to their wives when the games were over. Famously, Phil would say on the air, "Cora, I'll be home in a half an hour or whatever."
Yeah. So here's a story I didn't tell you. I went to a game, and I remember why we went to the game. It was Nolan Ryan's last season, and we thought maybe he'd be pitching that night. You wanted to see Ryan pitch at Yankee Stadium. So my friend Anthony and Anthony was from Long Island, we met at the game. Turns out it got rained out. But we waited. We were waiting it out. And I said to Anthony, let's go up and see Phil give us a ride home, because he lived literally, if you didn't catch the red lights on Morris Avenue, 8 to 10 minutes from my parents. So we were running up to the press box, and he was just coming out of the booth, and the door was open, and I said, Phil, could you give me a ride home? And he looked up and he said, sure, come on in. And then he stopped and he looked at me and he said, you're not alone, are you? And I said, no, I have my friend Anthony with me. Oh, okay. He says, come on. He says, I wouldn't want Cora to get the wrong idea that I was driving a young lady home from the game. So we walked into the press box, rode down the elevator, out to the player parking lot. He was riding it was an older Jaguar. He said it was Cora's car. We get in the car. I sit in the front seat. Anthony's in the back. And as we were walking to the car, Anthony's going, how am I getting home from your house? And I'm going, shut up. I'll put you on the train. Well, we get in the car, and the first thing Phil did was he put the radio on to the Mets game. And I said, you listen to the Mets? And he said, I'll listen to any game that's on.
Yeah.
The story stuck with me simply because he was worried what Cora would think, that he was driving a young lady home from a baseball game.
Well, they were married
and I said, oh, I'm not going to say anything because I have too much respect for you to ever do anything. But he was a gem. So even retired as an Yankee announcer, his concern was Cora.
Yep. Well, they were married in the early 40s. I'm not sure which year. If you know, let me know.
I'm not sure the year. You know the story of how we met her, right?
Yeah. Go ahead.
About the communion breakfast?
Go ahead.
Joe DiMaggio was supposed to speak at a communion breakfast, and he couldn't make it. And he called Phil and asked Phil to go in his place. So, and I think it was in Newark. And Phil went to the gentleman who was running the communion breakfast house, to meet there and then go to where the communion breakfast was being held. And as he's waiting in the hallway inside the front door, the gentleman's daughter walked down the steps, and it was Cora. So he always credited Joe for introducing him to Cora, because Joe canceled out of the communion breakfast and Phil took his place. And then that's how he met Cora. And the rest is history.
Yeah, he said it was, he was love at first sight, and it was his first girlfriend.
Yep.
and his last. They were married their entire lives after that. And I guess Phil passed away in 2000.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, and she didn't survive him that much longer, but they're together now. So these the one on the left is a toughie.
Dandy potato chips.
1954. I have a couple of cards from this set, and you can see on there it's authentic because it has a little bit of the potato chip grease on it.
Yes.
They weren't smart enough to put the cards in like a little packaging to keep them.
Yep, you just got potato chip grease.
Yeah. So every single card has some amount of that, but Phil in this set is hard to find. I've never seen it before. So.
Oh, really?
Kudos for you on this. Yeah. You don't see Dandy much, and certainly when I do see them, I don't ever remember seeing Phil before. So that's a biggie. And then there's the 54 Tops, a card.
Which is behind me.
I don't have, but it's the red is striking on that. Beautiful card. These are Red Man. Do you know the years of these? Because I don't collect this set at all.
53 and 54. They have the tabs on the bottom.
Oh, okay.
Sometimes you see them without the tabs, but I wanted them with the tabs. Because to me, that's the whole
53 and 54.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, so I know the one on the right is it's a Venezuelan card, Rizzuto or Retirado or whatever, however you pronounce it. The one on the left, I have an inkling of what it is, but I'm not sure.
If I had it in front of me, I'd flip it over and show you, but I put it away upstairs.
Okay. Is it? It's a food issue, though, right? Isn't it?
I believe so. Yeah.
Hot dog or something.
Oh, it could be the Stallmeyer Franks.
Right. Is that what that is? Because I know people who have the mantle on that, and it's like a $10,000 card or something.
Oh, no. Yeah.
I'm sure the commenters will help us with this one. You know, the other thing about grading cards is that there's a cheat because the label always tells you what it is.
Oh, okay.
You can sound really, intelligent.
I'll check on our break and let you know what's on the back because it's upstairs now.
That's okay. 55, which by the time 55 rolled around, Phil was starting to become a veteran who was playing less. It's interesting that the photo that they chose for the on the left of him reminds me of the crop photo of the 48 with him kind of protecting himself from a baseball hitting sensitive areas. I don't think it's the same photo, but it's the same kind of look.
Yeah.
And then we get his final card, playing days card, a beautiful 56. That is a beautiful example. Perfectly centered, sharp, colors are great, registration is perfect. That is a beautiful card.
Thank you.
Mine is not as nice, but I have a pretty good one of it too.
I love the horizontal cards.
Yeah. I have the entire 56 set.
Wow.
And I'd say about 20 graded examples, but the set is 340 cards. So I'd say over 300 of them I have as raw cards. So all in a binder. So these are post-playing days. The 61, the one on the left, that beautiful red, is the MVP subset within the 61 top set. And then on the right is Baseball Scoops. I think that's 61 or 60.
I think it's 61.
Okay.
So the card on the left, to give you a little story, I have multiples of those because it's not an expensive card. I just like that it was red.
Yeah.
So the night before he was inducted in Cooperstown, I made my first journey to his home because you have to respect someone's boundaries, and I never went to his home.
Right.
But I went over to the house and I knocked on the door, and I had made custom hats for the Hall of Fame induction. I had them embroidered. They say "Holy Cow, Hall of Fame '94," and I wanted to give him a hat, and I also gave him this card. And he invited me in, and we went into his den, his little office at home, which was amazing. He had his cleats bronzed. He had his MVP award there. But that's what I remember about this card, that I actually gave it to him. And he said, "Oh, I can't take this. These cards are expensive." And I said, "No, this one was not expensive. You can have this one." He autographed a couple items for me that night. He autographed a book. But that's my memory of that card, that I gave him one along with. I only had a dozen hats embroidered, and I gave one to him. And afterwards, after we were at Cooperstown for that long weekend, everywhere I went wearing my hat, people asked me where I got it. And I said to my friend Anthony, "Oh my gosh, I should have made more. We could have sold them up here." So that was my memory of that card, that I went to the house and gave it to him.
You would have had to give Phil a percentage of the
sales. Yeah.
Although obviously you met the gentleman many times. He was not like that.
No.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Although one of the things that was remarkable to me was that at one point, I believe it was after he won the 50 MVP, he got a huge contract, and I think he was the third highest paid player in the major leagues at that point.
Wow.
So, yeah, good for him.
Yeah, he also worked in the off season. He worked at a men's clothing store in Newark because players in the 50s didn't have $1 million contracts.
Yeah.
So.
And he had a house and a wife and a family.
And 4 kids. Yeah.
Yeah. These, I don't know what these are at all. So you're going to have to tell me what we have here.
Well, they're brand new. I stopped in Emmaus, Pennsylvania, in a little card store because I needed some top loaders, and I'd never been in before. And he had them right there in the front. So I believe they might be upper deck. They're fairly new. I'll get them on the break. Again, they're upstairs, but I liked them because they were patches.
Mm-hmm.
And they're kind of thick, and I thought, oh, I'm just going to grab these up. I wasn't really sure what they were because I'd never seen them. But
Right.
today is Sunday. I literally bought them Thursday night.
Well, I have a Yogi bat piece, so I know how this stuff can be attractive to you. So we're out of the cards, but now we're into some of the other stuff, the buttons.
The little pins.
And a pennant, yeah. So some of these buttons, I don't see a 56 in there. I have a couple of 56 buttons and some earlier ones, but what do we have here exactly?
The 2 little ones were part of a set. There were different players in those years, and I happened to find 2, so I put them together. The little charms, the red square one and the round circle one, I think you got them out of gumball machines.
Oh, that's crazy.
They popped out in that little plastic ball.
Yep.
For a quarter or 10 cents. And then the little felt pennant was part of caramels. Like a giveaway with these little chewy caramel candies. I actually have 2 of those. The first one's not in very good condition, but since I hadn't seen it, I bought it. And then I found that one in better condition, but they were like just a little regional food giveaway. Like
early mid 50s.
Mm-hmm. And then the pin, I actually have one of the pins with a ribbon on it, so I don't know where they were from. The big one on the upper left.
I think that's coming up next.
Yeah.
There we go.
They may have been stadium giveaways. I'm not sure. And again, I bought them in those little boxes. That's how I saw them, and I've left them in the boxes as I purchased them.
Is that the Italian flag?
I believe so.
Because Phil, I believe his mother was born in Italy, but his father was first-generation American. But his Italian heritage was something that he was quite proud of. And I think this is
glove.
Yeah, we've got a few more. So the glove, we mentioned the glove before from that great picture. I don't remember which card it was. But so these came in boxes. Is that his signature there?
Yeah, that's his signature. I have 1, 2. I have 4 Rizzuto gloves. There's 3 in that case. 1, 2. Yeah, there's 4 or 5 Rizzuto gloves, and he signed them all at the stadium. You'd go in, and then I believe I found the box on eBay.
And did he ever wear this glove?
No.
No.
They're all store model gloves.
Okay. No, but I mean, didn't you have?
Oh, there was the one he put on his hand. Yeah, he just pounded it and laughed. Yeah.
And here we got the scooter pies.
The scooter pies. He laughed so hard when he signed that box.
Holy cow!
Holy cow!
You got a holy cow in this one. I remember scooter pies, but I don't remember Salerno. I guess maybe there were multiple brands of them, but
yeah, and I think this was regional to New York. I don't think you'd find it outside of the New York region.
Like a chocolate disc.
Yeah, and then there were 2 layers, almost like a graham crackery layer,
right?
And then marshmallow, and then coat it in chocolate. Yeah, they're about as big as the palm of your hand.
Yeah, great memories of the scooter pies, but I guess he got an endorsement deal because he's right on the.
He's right on the box.
Right on the box there. Okay, so I don't know what's going on here. You gotta explain this one to me.
I found that, I believe, in Eastern PA. It's the Good Luck Clover Newspaper Boy contest. I think, if you sold so many papers, you won a free record. And I bought it exactly like that. The gentleman had it all framed and ready to go.
So what's on the record? Is it music?
I honestly don't know.
Okay.
I never looked. Phil Rizzuto, famous shortstop of the New York Yankees. Yeah, I don't know. I never took it out to play it.
What year is this?
I don't know.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay, so he's obviously signed this Hall of Fame '94.
Yep.
Tell me.
I found those. I don't even remember where. It might have been a garage sale, and there were 2 cleats never worn in that little box that says Belmar, and I thought these are kind of cool. It'd be fun to have Phil sign one. I don't know the year of the shoes, but I just like the box, so I had him sign one.
Well, that is a great signature. I love his signature. It's very ornate.
Yes.
And this is the last slide for this part 1.
Mm-hmm.
I made this the last because this is the one that took my breath away the most of this.
Okay.
These are obviously seats from
Yankee Stadium.
The original Yankee Stadium or the renovated post 1976 Yankee Stadium?
I think renovated.
Okay. And when did you get them?
I think before I was married. And I guess as they took them out of the stadium when they needed to be replaced, kind of thing.
Right.
And it wasn't, obviously they weren't signed when I bought them, and I just thought they'd be cool to have in my office to sit on. The 7 is faded, and I thought, oh, 8 is Yogi's number. That would be the ideal. 10 would have been ideal.
Right.
We didn't have number 10, so I took number 8, and had him sign it, obviously, after he got in the Hall of Fame. And they've been sitting here ever since.
So, yeah, there's a signature there.
Mm-hmm.
It says, "Holy cow, Phil Rizzuto, Hall of Fame 1994." And what else?
Number 10 and MVP 1950.
Right.
And it was all for the bargain autograph price of $20 because you didn't pay extra for inscriptions. And, you know, he kind of knew me and he was like, "What do you want me to put on here?" And I said, "I'll put all that." And so he did.
So you carried this to a show?
Yeah, you put it on, you know, I put it on a little buggy with wheels.
Oh,
cover it with a sheet and take it in. Yeah, my dad was great for doing things like that with me.
I've been on autograph lines before with guys with giant things, but I've never seen and you know, balls.
Stadium seats go in.
Everything. Stadium seats I've never seen. Actually, that's not true. I saw not the full seat, like where the you know, where the 8 is, that portion of it I've seen.
Right. I have a seat back above the one cabinet here that I got I think it was at the Yankee Fan Fest. They had seat backs for sale, and I paid $10 for it. But it's only the back, like what you see here.
Yeah.
And then Phil signed it. And then I had a friend make the case. But yeah, I do have just a seat back. That's number 1, Billy Martin's number. They didn't have a 10. I looked.
Right. But yeah, this is in your office.
Yeah, it's right behind me. Let's see. Oh, you can't see it. I have the shades up for lighting.
That's okay.
It's literally right behind me.
Oh, that's great. So that's the end of part 1. This is normally the amount of stuff that we have for a show, and we're on about 48 minutes. So, but we got a whole other show to do. This is airing on Saturday morning. The next show that we will do that will be airing the following Saturday. So just wanted to let guests know that yes, next week will be the Phil Rizzuto part 2 with Andrea, and then after that I'm doing a solo show, and then we've got some other stuff coming up after that. But great guests. I don't know if we're ever going to get a collection like this again, but part 2 is truly unique. So Andrea, thank you for coming on.
Thank you. Thank you.
Tune in next week for more viewers. Okay. So we will see you guys next week.